Matthew Woods is the biggest hypocrite in motorcycling. I can already hear it, bro. At the end of the day, a lot of people get confused. This is a motorcycle page, yes, but it is my page. I can already hear it. I already know. I'm gonna sell this bike. I'm not gonna sell this bike. I'm gonna buy this bike. I'm not gonna buy this bike. No, I'm not scared of 1000s because I crashed, okay? I just wanted it. God, I already know that this is gonna be a point of contention. I have to argue with people online. No, I'm not scared of 1000s, bro. As of today, I have put down a deposit on a brand new motorcycle. It's a motorcycle a lot of you guys may have possibly may have heard of. I'm not going to string you along any longer than I already have. It is a 2025 Yamaha R9. I put a $500 deposit in on a black 2025 model. It is supposedly supposed to arrive in March, but it's probably going to be closer to April or June, knowing how most dealerships work. And this comes right after I just took a total giant dump on the new R9. And I'm going to explain myself very briefly here before we get into the rest of today's video. I like the Yamaha R9. In my original video, I said the R9 is going to make a lot of people happy. I personally wasn't initially interested in that bike. When they announced the R9, I was hoping that they were going to completely redesign the motor to rev a little bit higher, make a little bit more horsepower to make that bike more competitive. What instead Yamaha did is they completely redesigned the frame on that bike, which is still totally valid. The frame and the motor on a motorcycle are some of the two most expensive components. So I'm glad they at least did something there. But to me, what I was most looking forward to on the new R9 was a complete redesign of the motor, which Yamaha did not do. It is still the exact same motor that is coming from the MT-09, which I've owned in the past. For those who've been following me for a long time know I had a 2014 MT-09 a long time ago. Now they've changed that bike a ton since then, but it doesn't change the fact that that bike still hits limiter at 10,000 RPM or a little bit above 10,000 RPM. It's not a sport bike motor. And so I originally wasn't going to buy one because I wasn't terribly interested in it. However, so I currently own 4 bikes. I have this Supermoto, which is one of my favorite bikes of all time. I am never replacing this bike unless they just come out with a new one because it's that good. I have my BMW S1000RR. I have my Kawasaki H2, another bike that I cannot replace. There's no replacing that bike. There's no bike that compares to that one. And then there's my MT-07. Now, what is interesting about the 07... Oh no, my gloves are blown away. So I've said in my past videos before, I've kind of dumped on the MT-07. And a lot of people get very angry about that, oddly enough. It's a very popular bike. A lot of people like that bike. And I hold that bike very near and dear to my heart. It is, for the price that you pay for an MT-07, it is the perfect bike. I paid $6,000 for my MT-07. I put 5,000 miles on it, and every single one of those miles I enjoyed. It has a ton of torque. It is just a perfect bike. It taught me how to wheelie. I learned so much about riding on that bike. But Yamaha just announced a brand new MT-07. They changed quite a bit. They facelifted it, gave it an electronic throttle, gave it a bunch of new features like cruise control. And I headed out on the highway yesterday, and I realized that I think I'm starting to hit a limit on that bike, a limit that I didn't know existed. And I think as I ride this bike more and more, I mean, this bike and the MT-07 are completely different. This bike makes all of its power up top. It revs way high. The MT-07 makes all of its power down low. It doesn't rev as high. Completely different motorcycles. But as I ride this bike more and more, being able to pick up the front wheel in first, second, third, riding super hard, this has great suspension, fantastic brakes, and then going from this bike and then hopping on the MT-07, I suddenly realize all of the weaknesses that the MT-07 have. And yeah, the MT-07 is half the price of this bike, but it doesn't change the fact that I enjoy this bike tenfold over the MT-07. And so as I'm starting to realize the weaknesses of the MT-07 and I have this bike, so I think I'm just hitting a limit on the MT-07. And so if I didn't own this bike, I'd probably continue to own the MT-07 and enjoy it a lot. My wheelies on the MT-07, which is really the only reason I still own that bike, continuing my learning process on how to wheelie, I just don't enjoy it as much on the MT-07 as I do on this bike. I am learning way faster on this bike than I am on the MT-07, just because that bike is like 50, 70 pounds heavier, has less horsepower. It's just, it doesn't compare to this one. And so with the new R9 coming out, I feel inspired to try something new. And so I put in my order on a brand new Yamaha R9, to which I hope I find that sense of riding that, you know, pick it up in whatever gear you want, because the new R9 is going to have a ton of torque. Going into the R9 skeptical, but with an open mind. So I'm looking forward to it. I am very much looking forward to buying an R9 and riding it and giving my impressions. But there's also another bike that was just announced today that I am also going to be buying and comparing to the Yamaha R9. The Ducati V2. Yeah, I put in an order for a Ducati V2, the brand new one. It has a very similar amount of horsepower, very similar amount of torque compared to the Yamaha R9. They are very similar in style of bikes. I'm pretty sure the V2 is going to be lighter and likely a little bit higher quality, but they have very similar brakes, and I'm so excited to compare to those two bikes. So if you want to stick around, make sure you hit the subscribe button because we're going to be comparing those two bikes very soon.